Please call this meeting to order. The Champaign County Board. It's Thursday, June 21st, 2012. The time is 7:07. Please turn off your cell phones or put them on silent. Roll call, please.
Rosales.
Present.
Schrader.
Here.
Alex.
Here.
Ammons. Anderson. Benzel.
Here.
Berkson.
Here.
Betts.
Here.
Carter.
Here.
Cowart. Esri.
Here.
Polderfield.
Here.
James.
Here.
Jay.
Here.
Kibler.
Here.
Kurtz.
Here.
Langenheim. Maxwell.
Here.
McGinty.
Here.
Michaels.
Here.
Mitchell.
Here.
Mosier.
Here.
O'Connor.
Here.
Petrie.
Here.
Quisenberry. Richards. Weibel.
Here, we have a quorum. Ms. Anderson, Ms. Ammons, Mr. Langenheim, Mr. Quisenberry informed me they would not be able to make a meeting tonight. Unfortunately, I have no prayer tonight. I didn't have time to find one, nor did I have time to write one, so we'll skip the prayer and go on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please read the notice of the meeting?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on June 21, 2012 at 7 o'clock p.m. in the Lyle Shields Meeting Room, Brookings Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payment of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees, and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Betts, second by Mr. Carter. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Seek approval of the agenda and addenda.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. James, second by Mr. Mitchell. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The date and time of our next regular meeting is Tuesday, July 10th, for a Committee of the Whole for County Facilities, Finance, Policy, Personnel, and Appointments. Note that there's only one cow for July, and then that meeting is at 6 o'clock in this room. Then on July 19th, there is a regular county board meeting at 7 p.m. on Thursday. In addition, we have a meeting next Tuesday on your green sheet here in this room at 5:30 p.m. Notice at 5:30 we'll have presentations by the companies which may be doing a need study for our jail system. Okay, let's move on to consent agenda. Are there any items that you wish to take off the consent agenda?
Move consent.
Move by Jay, second by Mr. McGinty. Roll call, please.
Rosales.
Here.
Schrader.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Benzel.
Yes.
Berkson.
Yes.
Betts.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Cowart.
Yes.
Esri.
Yes.
Polderfield.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Kibler.
Yes.
Kurtz.
Here. Yes.
Maxwell.
Yes.
McGinty.
Yes.
Michaels.
Yes.
Mitchell.
Yes.
Mosier.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yes.
Petrie.
Yes.
Weibel.
Yes, motion carries. I'm going to take a 30-second break. Go ahead, Joel. Oh, yeah. No, I'll just call a 30-second break.
This goes on the official
People start talking, so I missed that. Can you repeat that, please? I understand that.
20 years ago, I've been like tears.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, I'll discuss what's on the phone later, so don't feel like I'm keeping something from you. Okay, consent agenda is passed. Public participation. Julie Watkins, please.
Hello, my name is Julie Watkins. I live at 805 East Green in Urbana. I was here in this room last February. I'm here to talk about the proposed jail expansion. And last February, the people were here. Many community members had a lot of concerns about different things and about how safety money should be spent. The planning team, as it was said back then, for making this jail or expansion seemed to have been appointed, and they just kept going. There was, after people asked about that and wanted to have more community input, the Community Justice Task Force was established but has only had a couple of meetings. And it should have been, I believe, more involved in what's going on. It was not apparently able to look at got involved with the RFP. And I think next week you are having, you are interviewing different companies. I think that task force should be part of that as well. And I hope you decide to let them be involved. And one of the things that people kept saying last time was it seemed like the idea that we needed to expand the jail seemed to be, well, let's do it and let's put it on a fast track. I don't know what the rush is. I think if there's a problem with the existing jail, we might need to make repairs. That would be less money and debt incurred than making a new building, especially since the usage seems to be going down. And I think that the money would better be spent with social programs and mental health and so on. It would help the community better than making a jail expansion that I don't think we need. Thank you very much.
Jerome Bomberger. Oh, sorry, Jeremy Bomberger.
The day after the January 1st study session on the jail issue, Dennis Kimmey, who was to become the top-ranked jail planner by the project planning team, wasted no time in contacting his old colleague and member of the planning team, County Sheriff Dan Walsh. In an email dated February 1st, 2012, which is on your desks, Kimmey addresses, quote, several issues that arose regarding our community's need for improved and/or expanded jail facilities. What follows is a list of arguments designed to undermine the concerns that the public and the board members raised at that meeting. Kimmey trumpets the savings offered by operational consolidation without mentioning that such consolidation would require the largest increase in the county's debt burden in nearly 20 years. He seeks to dismiss concerns about the detainment of nonviolent offenders by offering anecdotal evidence about prior convictions, and notes that examining the histories of the inmate population might easily put to rest the claim that we unnecessarily incarcerate, assuming that it is an issue that might derail your efforts and thus need to be addressed. What track is Kimmey concerned about the public's input derailing us from? Certainly, if members of the board began to take the notion of an unnecessary detention seriously, it could distract us from the proposal to build a new pod or two onto the satellite jail. Kimmey's final point is even more troubling. He addresses the issue of racial disparity between the demography of the county and the jail by saying that, quote, people of all races are in jail increasingly for violent offenses, felony offenses, repeat offenses, and violations of court orders. This explanation is tantamount to the assertion that African Americans, who are incarcerated at more than 4 times the rate they occur in the county, commit violent and felony level crimes at a much greater rate than individuals of any other race. I can say without hesitation that this is a racist notion which ignores the possibility that discriminatory policing and prosecution could contribute to such a disparity. Recall that the state's attorney's office only prosecutes about half the police reports which they evaluate. I'm curious about the racial composition of those whose cases never even enter the pretrial phase. Kimmy closes the email with an offer. If I can help define the proper tasks for a pre-designed plan study process, please feel free to contact me. Mr. Kimmy was not done with his self-advocacy after his email to Walsh. The next day, he sent an email to State's Attorney Julia Reitz. Ms. Reitz does not know Dennis as well as Walsh does, so his letter was more introductory. He first notes that he has just finished consulting with the Republic of Panama on a 5,000-bed prison project. It is worth noting here that the State Department describes the conditions in Panama's state-administered prison system as continuously harsh and sometimes life-threatening, with inadequate medical care, untrained guards, and little separation based on severity of crime. Kimmy goes on to tout the 7 Illinois counties for which he has planned and designed jail facilities. These credentials leave little doubt in my mind about what kinds of needs assessment Kimmy would do in Champaign. But his next paragraph really puts the issue to rest. He writes, quote, "We did the Champaign County needs analysis in 1992 that eventually led to the design of the current satellite jail. Incidentally, the county had a low incarceration rate then compared to its peers and national averages and does today as well." What Kimmy is saying here is that he is a specialist in building jails for Champaign County despite low rates of incarceration and opportunities for the development of progressive correctional policies. This may sound like repetition, but I want to make my point here quite clear. Dennis Kimmy, the top-ranked jail planner by the Jail Space Improvement Project planning team, was exercising influence over the planning process for this project long before the RFP was even written. And the arguments he puts forth in his letter to Walsh have all been articulated since that time by the members of the planning team. He has long-standing connections with individuals who have advocated for an increase in bed space for Champaign since the beginning of this process, such as Sheriff Walsh. I would direct your attention to his letter to the board on the 31st of January. Finally, Kimmy's bias and his conflicts of interest could not be more clear. Not only does he retain architects as part of his firm, he is one himself. I hope that these facts will induce the board to approach his interview next week with the utmost caution. Thank you for your time.
Joe Giuliani? Did I get that right?
You did. I'm Joe Giuliani. I'm CEO of AMI, and I'm here tonight not to really say anything, but more for the purpose of if there's any questions regarding A1, I would be glad to get up and answer any questions from the company that's, I guess, designed to move into the space.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Bill and or Deb Klein, either one of you or both? I don't know if we have a rule on dual presentation.
I'm Bill Klein. I'll speak for Deb and myself. I'm just here to answer any questions if the need arises once you get into the discussion on our zoning request. Thank you.
James Kilgore.
Good evening, James Kilgore, 511 South Draper, Champaign. As a member of the Community Task Force, I'm usually concerned with alternatives to incarceration. But I also spent a few years of my life as an economics teacher, long enough to learn about this concept of opportunity cost. If you spend money on one thing, you lose the opportunity to spend it on something else. You can't have your cake and eat it too, or in our present moment, you can't build your jail and keep people out of jail as well. So wearing my economist hat, I've spent some time poring over the county jail's annual financial reports. Let me provide a brief summary of my findings, which are in front of you on this sheet. In 1999, the county board borrowed $23.8 million to pay off the balance on the satellite jail, build the juvenile detention center, renovate the courthouse, and fund various items as per Ordinance 572. From 1999 to 2010, the county collected more than $44 million from the public safety sales tax. Yet, the county has paid off less than $2 million in principal on those construction projects. According to the board's financial statement for 2010, the most recent available on the website, the outstanding debt on that original $23 million sat at just over $22 million. A few more points. By the time we pay off these bonds from 1999, in 2029, we will have paid another $30 million in interest and finance charges in addition to the outstanding $22 million in principal. Then, if we borrow $20 million more to build a new jail and repay it according to schedule, our total debt service, principal plus interest, by 2039 would be $35 million. What does all this mean? If this were your house and you've paid off less than 5% of the principal after 11 years, it means that you've been refinancing the house to pay for other things. That's what the county's been doing, using the public safety sales tax to pay for costs other than the main item in the ordinance, construction. My guess is that if we continue on this borrowing path, there's going to be a need to refinance again and again and add even more debt to this. Where does this stop? Wearing my economist hat, I would say that these figures tell us that the opportunity costs of building this jail, particularly in terms of debt, are too high. But the opportunity costs of doing nothing are also too high. Doing nothing means we continue to keep people in a hellhole of a downtown jail, which from a financial standpoint is also a lawsuit waiting to happen. Most of you have been there, so I don't need to explain that statement. But doing nothing or building a state-of-the-art $20 million jail are not the only options. There is a need to think creatively. A good starting point would be to go back to Ordinance 683, which the board passed in 2003, a copy of which I have also provided you. The ordinance spells out how the public safety sales tax revenues were to be spent. Notice that the last item is, quote, to provide 5% of the annual revenues for funding public safety related to programming and education for the youth of Champaign County. Said programming to include juvenile delinquency prevention, intervention, diversion, and post-detention services. I would suggest that you revisit this 5% and go beyond youth and said programming. Instead of allocating more money to jail construction and debt service, use this money to solve the existing problems. Some possibilities are, 1, add mental health services to that list in 683. According to the mental health worker at the jail in her presentation at the task force on June 4th, about 80% of those with mental health problems in the jail are there for minor offenses. Provide these people cheaper preventive services in the community, not new jail cells. 2, tighten up pretrial services and admin systems to bring them in line with national best practice. 3, racial discrepancy. We need to find out why so many African Americans are in jail. Addressing this issue can save a lot of money and restore some sense of faith in the criminal justice system in the African American community. That's definitely worth spending money on. 4, add resources to the existing program, including the highly promising Second Chance effort recently launched. 5, do the required maintenance on the downtown jail. 6, follow the recommendation of the NIC and install cheaply constructed minimum security dorms at the satellite to accommodate both men and women with minor offenses. This county cannot build its way or spend its way out of this problem. The point in doing the needs assessment is to find cheaper, effective, justice-promoting solutions and avoid the fatal step of sinking this county under a deeper mountain of debt. Wearing my economist hat, that's my advice, offered free of charge. Thank you.
Mark Schabel? Schubel.
Hi there, I'm Mark Schubel. I live at 105 East Green in Champaign. About a month ago, at the last county board meeting, I had the opportunity to talk to you guys about my nonpartisan voter information website, WSATI. I just want to take this opportunity to thank those of you who have signed up and have been able to give me feedback. I think we're really making progress on making it easier for voters to understand your views and make more informed voting decisions. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the site or sign up, feel free to talk to me or go to the site. It's WSATI, W-I-S-O-T-I. And feel free to send me any questions or comments. Thanks again. Thank you.
Is there further public participation? Seeing none, we'll go on to communications. I have one. Earlier today, Mr. Chuck Shute was terminated by Management Performance Associates as administrator of the Champaign County Nursing Home. Karen Hofke, the current director of nursing, will be served as the nursing home administrator because she is a licensed nursing home administrator until a permanent replacement has been recruited. And the Illinois Department of Public Health has been notified of this change. Any inquiries regarding this matter should be directed to MPA. Any other communications? Mr. Kurtz.
Thank you, Mr. Wiley. I want to thank the Sheriff's Department, State's Attorney, Probation Department, Public Defender, and the judges at the county courthouse. On Monday, I attended another one of our very successful diversion programs, the drug court. The drug court graduated another 8 felons, in essence. From this drug court, we have now saved nearly $400,000 and made the county much safer. Over 175 graduates have now taken place in the drug court since established in 1999. This is one of the most successful diversion programs because 3 out of 4 of these graduates do not have a criminal record within 4 years of their graduation. This is the kind of diversion program, among others, that we have here in Champaign County to help alleviate problems in our jails. These 8 gentlemen had over 35 felonies and 60 misdemeanors. During their 1 year of work with the drug court, not a single one had one crime or even a parking ticket or a speeding ticket against any of them. This is a tremendously successful program, and we're now expanding it to a mental health drug court, which will have its first graduates very shortly. And so we're trying to work within the mental health community as well as within the criminal community. So I wanted to thank those entities for working this diversion program. Thank you.
Mr. Esri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'll just start out to anyone in this room and any who are watching on TV, a plea for safety and a little bit of caution at rural intersections, especially with the corn up the way it is, and give the beans some time, and they'll be tall enough to hide a car too. The reason I'm saying this, on my way into caucus this evening, I T-boned a lady. I hope and pray she's okay. I'm here. I'm obviously feeling okay now. They say to expect to be a little sore in the morning. But I T-boned a lady. I had the right of way. She had a stop sign. She did a rolling stop. But there's no doubt that the tall corn, because it was on the corner that would have obstructed her view, played a part in it. But if you don't know the intersections, you don't know if they have a stop sign, you don't have a stop sign, you know you don't have a stop sign, but you don't know if they do, please stop. Assume that that is an unmarked intersection. As time goes on, there's fewer and fewer in the county, but they are still out there. Take that extra few seconds to come to a complete stop and check and make sure that there's no one else coming. But yeah, it wasn't my idea of a good time by any means, and I know it wouldn't be for anybody else, but like I say, I'm feeling okay, and I hope and pray that she's okay too. They took her away in an ambulance. I'm obviously up and ambulatory and doing fine as of right now, but just please take that extra caution and stop if you don't know the intersection. Thank you.
Further communication, Mr. McGinty?
Absolutely, Aaron. On a bright side, for the 6th straight year, we have been, as a county, we won the Government Finance Officer Association's Distinguished Budget Award. Only a handful of counties out of 102 in this state win that award. And as finance chair, I can easily say that a bulk of that credit goes to Deb Busey. It always has. If you look at the progress that our budget has made over the years in terms of transparency, readability, usability, conciseness, implementation throughout every department uses the budget as part of their planning, we've made great strides, and Deb has led that effort with great cooperation from the elected and appointed officials and department heads. So I would just like to thank Deb for her efforts. 6 straight years, it's a very, very short list in this state that gets that designation, so thank you, Deb.
Are there any other communications from the board? Okay, let's move on to approval of the minutes for May 24th, 2012. Moved by Mr. Kurtz, second by Mr. Mitchell. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up is environment and land use. Mr. Kurtz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's move to A1 to approve the adoption of ordinance number 904, amending the zoning map to change the designation from Ag 1 to I-1 Light Industry Zoning District. The committee voted to recommend approval of this rezoning of a former agricultural research facility, subject to conditions recommended by the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I so move.
Second. Second by Mr. Mosier. Sorry, Mr. Kibler. Mosier is faster.
I also move,
Hold on,
Mr. Chair. May I?
You want the floor, Mr. Kurtz?
Yes, I still have the floor, please. Thank you. I move for a roll call vote to record the 14 affirmative votes required for approval of the zoning map amendment.
Second by Mr. Betts. Thank you, Mr. Betts. Mr. Esri.
Yes, I will abstain from this due to my business relationship with my electrical business, A&R Electric, that I have with the Kleins. Thank you.
Further discussion? Ms. Petrie?
Again, I will state that I can't support this, not that it has anything to do with the people who own the land or the business. My concern is that it is not stated in the amendment to the zoning that when and if this business no longer occupies these buildings, that this revert back to Ag 1.
Further discussion?
Question directed at Mr. Klein appropriate at this time?
If you want him to...
Bill, how much would it cost you to make that tillable?
Mr. Klein, please come to the microphone.
Bill, approximately how much would it cost you to make this tract tillable?
Probably $75,000 to $100,000.
And how many acres are involved?
4.4.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Rosales?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Benzel?
Yes.
Berkson?
Yes.
Betts?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Coward?
Yes.
Esri? Holderfield?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Kibler?
Yes.
Kurtz?
Yes.
Maxwell?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Michaels?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Mosier?
Yeah.
O'Connor?
Yes.
Petrie?
No.
Weibel?
Yes, motion carries. Mr. Kurtz?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move on to item A2. I move to approve resolution number 8169, approving partial release of judgment for property at 1211 West Washington, Champaign. The committee voted to recommend approval of this resolution. I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. James. Discussion. Mr. Betts?
Record me as abstaining by office as having relationship.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Microphone.
Suing this particular individual to avoid any appearance of conflict, I'd like to abstain.
Mr. Betts will be abstaining. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Kurtz. Move on to finance. Mr. McGinty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I recommend adoption of resolution number 8170 for payment of claims authorization, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Alex. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
I recommend adoption of resolution number 8171 for purchase of not following purchasing policy, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Alex. Discussion. Being none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Shortest finance ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Giffey. Highway and Transportation, Ms. Coder has informed me that since she was not at the committee of the whole meeting, she asked Mr. J to chair this part.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would move to adopt Resolution 8172 for the contract for payment of striping of various county highway sections 12-00000-01-GM.
Second by Mr. Mosier. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 8173, approving a contract award authority to the highway engineer.
Second by Ms. Holderfield. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
That's all from highway, sir.
Mr. J, policy person on appointments. Chair and vice chair are not here. Mr. Betts, would you mind being temporary?
Would I mind?
Well, would you do it, please?
I move adoption of Resolution 8174, approving an agreement with Good Energy for professional energy consultation services in Nelson Road.
Second by Mr. Carter. Discussion. Mr. Betts.
Even though I made the motion, because someone had to, I cannot support this motion without more explanation. I guess my concern is I don't think we looked around to see if there were other entities out there who could provide this service. Normally we let out RFPs and what have you. This seemed to be almost a self-solicitation from what I've been told by this company. That doesn't make it bad, but I've been told the city of Champaign did not hire Good Energy, but the city of Urbana did, that there was apparently some sort of vetting process of several entities by the cities. We certainly, as a county board, and I know that there's a timing issue, did not have an opportunity to vet other entities that are out there providing this service as a result of some of the deregulation that has taken place. And that's my concern is we have one entity, but we never got to see if there was anyone else interested. And I don't know how far the county threw its net to solicit other entities, or if it did that at all. But that is my concern. If the chair or others can allay that concern, I don't have a problem per se with Good Energy. It's that process issue.
Mr. Maxwell?
When I read through this, I had similar concerns.
A little closer to the mic, please.
When I read through this, I had similar concerns that Mr. Betts has stated. I'm also concerned, is there any chance we could get held financially responsible for some of this?
Sorry, repeat that, please.
Is there any chance that we could be held financially, we, the county board, we, the Champaign County, be held financially responsible if this thing falls apart?
You do have a new version of this agreement at your desks this evening, and I will point out to you that this version has been completely reviewed by legal, and the state's attorney worked with Good Energy in making some changes to the agreement. Most notably, if you look on page 2, Section F has been added in its entirety at the request of the state's attorney and agreed to by Good Energy, which just makes a little bit more clear what some of the requirements are from the county's perspective. It also, on page 3, under Section 4, as you will recall, the representative from Good Energy quoted a fee, but it was not in the agreement previously, so we have added that to the fee that would be received by Good Energy will be no greater than .00075, which is the fee that all of the municipalities that Good Energy represented in the first phase of this purchase, which just recently happened and which was Urbana was a part of. That is the fee that went along with that purchase. The county was contacted by companies who would provide the power, such as, if you read the News Gazette today, I believe that's what Vermilion County has done. But Good Energy is the only consulting service which will actually, on behalf of the county and while representing many other municipalities and counties, pool a group of entities, a large group of municipalities and counties into one purchase through an RFP. Some of the protections that were placed in Section F of the agreement you have before you this evening do place some parameters on that RFP, which will be done after the election if the voters do approve the referenda question that was approved with the consent agenda tonight to go on the ballot in November. So Good Energy will begin working immediately on this. If we don't use this consultant, if we were to put out an RFP, I don't have a good sense of how many firms are out there who provide this exact service. I believe most of the municipalities who haven't used this professional service to assist them with this municipal aggregation have done it on their own, and I think you can use Champaign and Urbana if you want to as a comparison, and quite frankly, Champaign did it on their own with their own staff, and the rate they have is higher than the rate that the city of Urbana was able to negotiate through Good Energy. Good Energy already has many municipalities on board for the November cycle, which will be the second cycle of purchasing this energy, which is why we're bringing the recommendation to you. Quite frankly, if we were to do an RFP, by the time we got it out and got it back, the election would probably be here. I am not certain who in county government is going to assume the responsibility to carry out all the tasks that Good Energy is going to do on our behalf as a result of this consulting services agreement between now and the November election. So I understand Mr. Betts' concern. This has not gone through an RFP process as we frequently do. However, when you're talking about professional services, it is not statutorily mandated either. And in summary, I think that's how we get to where we are at this point.
That would be correct. And I think there probably are other entities like this out there that I'm not familiar with any of them. Mr. Kurtz.
Mr. Chair, I have to respectfully recuse myself from the vote on this issue. I'm in the energy business.
All right. Ms. Petrie?
Well, I concur with the concerns expressed by Mr. Betts, and I take it one step further. We had talked about a referendum back at the beginning of the year, and now we're at the point of voting, and we are going to put a referendum on the ballot in November. What disappoints me that in between times that there were not some overtures made to find out what other companies are out there so that we had more than one to consider. We could have gone through the state-county organization, contacted other counties, just to find out if we indeed have other choices. I am very concerned that there is a precedent being set that we do things in basically quick and dirty. Somebody came to us, said, look at all this wonderful thing, spread out the deck of cards and said, we can do all of this for you. And it was a good, easy path of least resistance, and I just can't support it.
Mr. Alex?
I share Mr. Betts and Ms. Petrie's lack of enthusiasm for the process that got us here. But in the end, I will support this. I think that given the relatively low number of households that are involved in the unincorporated areas of the county relative to the number of households that are involved in the city of Urbana, and having watched to some extent this process transpire during the city, my concerns are somewhat allayed by the opportunity to hitch ourselves to that process, so I will be supportive of this with some reluctance.
Ms. Michaels.
I just had a question. Did he ever come back and say how many households would be affected by this in the unincorporated areas that were able to take part in this?
That's something we will need to determine, and I'm sorry I have not been able to get that determination done at this point.
Mr. Mosier?
I've gotten solicitations from 3 companies beside this one. I haven't talked to any of them, but there's other opportunities out there. And the amount of good this is going to do outside Champaign or Bann, it's pretty limited when you see how much Illinois REA Co-op has of the rural business, and it sure isn't going to do any of us that are in the grain drying business a whole lot of good, because very few of us are on Ameren. Well, there's other possibilities. I know Ogden's already made an agreement with somebody else. I don't know who it is, but there's more than one soliciting business individually, and I think it's probably on the basis of the amount of electricity customers use in a year, which is substantial for me.
Further discussion?
We have a roll call.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Rosales?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
Benzel?
Yes.
Berkson?
No.
Betts?
No.
Carter?
No.
Cowart?
No.
Esri?
Yes.
Holderfield?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Kibler?
Yes.
Kurtz? Maxwell?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Michaels?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Mosier?
Yes.
O'Connor?
Yes.
Petrie?
No.
Weibel?
Yes. Motion carries. Okay. Mr. Betts,
Yes.
number 2. Actually, Mr. Williams has been nominated, so that'd be the name you put in there.
Excuse me?
In the next one, Mr. Williams has been nominated.
Okay, I move the adoption of resolution number 8115, approving the appointment of a Democrat board member,
Wayne Williams, actually.
Wayne Williams, to the Board of Review.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Cowart. I would point out that Mr. Williams was nominated about a month and a half ago, and second, and then there's a deferment after that, so that motion's still on the floor. Mr. Betts, would you take over the chair, please?
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Betts. At this time, I'd like to withdraw my nomination of Mr. Williams as appointment to the Board of Review. It's clear he does not have the votes, although I am still a strong supporter of him. But I think it is appropriate to withdraw the nomination. Therefore, I move to appoint Elizabeth Bergner Patton as a member of the Board of Review, and also to amend the resolution to replace her name with to replace Democrat with her name on the resolution in the packet.
Is there a second? Second. And Mr. Kibler? Discussion? Mr. Kibler. Discussion? Yes, Mr. Benson.
Just one question. If he could finish the last part of that, I couldn't hear it over the phone ringing. If you could just finish the last part of your statement. I couldn't hear it when the phone started ringing.
I can't remember what it was. It was amending the resolution in your packet to replace, put the name actually on the resolution, because the resolution is just a Democrat.
Okay. Thank you.
Further discussion? Yes, Ms. Berkson.
How do we know that Wayne doesn't have the vote?
I'm not going to speak for the chairman, but the chair always has discretion to.
It is my opinion.
All those in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Aye. Motion carries. The next matter, the chair did not make an original selection, or did the chair?
No, I did not.
Okay. Adoption, I move the chair adoption of Resolution 816 approving the appointment of a Republican member of the Board of Review. Mr. Chairman.
Okay, before I make the action nomination, there were some discussions said at the Democratic caucus and perhaps other places too about whether or not Mr. Whitsett has a conflict of interest because of his current business, and also whether another applicant, Ms. Langland, is a valid applicant because she lives in Kankakee County. First of all, I have a statement from Mr. David DeThorne I will pass out. Everybody got one? I like to read. Please take a few minutes to read that. I assume everybody's had time to read that. As you can, if you read it, you'll note that he states that he cannot find a conflict of interest, but clearly there's some gray areas in there. Moving on to whether or not Ms. Langland from the third candidate, or another candidate, is eligible. The phone call that I received was from Joel Fletcher, State's Attorney's Office. And first of all, he chastised me correctly for calling him up at the last minute and chewed me out, which I deserved. The question was whether she was eligible to be appointed on the Board of Review if she doesn't live in Kankakee County. He says, based on the limited time he had, he is of the opinion that she is not eligible. Now, it's quite possible that if he did a more thorough study, he might find otherwise, but based on the time he had, it is his opinion that she's not an eligible candidate. Therefore, I nominate Mr. Mark Whitsett as a Republican member, or as a member of the Board of Review, and also amend the resolution, the package, to have his name replace the term Republican in the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Beth, I would ask that Mr. Jay, as chair of the caucus, be allowed to second the motion.
He did second
Okay.
it. Mr. Jay, would you like to speak to the motion? Mr. McGinty?
So the way I read the opinion that we were given was, I don't know. And the way that I just heard the opinion from the other state's attorney was, I don't know. And that doesn't really inspire a tremendous amount of confidence in the feeling that this is going to be an appointment that is without potential problem. So I'm wondering, as parliamentarian, perhaps Mr. Betts, what is possible in terms of deferring this so that we can get some real answers? Because I'm not prepared to vote either way, because I don't know. If we can't get legal opinion that knows, because that's clearly the case to me, can we push this off? Can I make a motion to defer?
You can always make the motion.
Then I'll make a motion to defer till next appropriate cow.
Second.
Discussion on the motion to defer only. Mr. Chairman.
I just want to point out that, more of a point of information that although the memo from Mr. Thorne is dated today, he actually had a number of days to work on it. I requested this information from last week. So this one was not rushed like the other opinion.
And it still says he doesn't know.
Mr. Mitchell.
May always be that way.
The Board of Review does convene on July 1st. So that's when you think about deferring and that's the people who want to bring their assessments in, they start after the 1st of the month.
Mr. Mosher.
By statute.
I know over the last 20 years, we've had appraisers on that board that were doing other things in Board of Review because the salary is not high enough to justify an appraiser to sit there and do that job at $35,000 when state of Illinois has already said that you can't be an appraiser unless you're certified, and it's difficult at best to get somebody that is certified to do that job. And I think if you're going to limit that, you're going to have to do it with a Board of Review rules, and I'm not afraid at this point to appoint him tonight, and I agree with Mr. Mitchell.
The issue is deferral. Ms. Petrie, speaking of the motion to defer.
I am. It's my understanding from the process with the Board of Review, indeed, it does begin the 1st of July. That does not preclude the fact, if it is not a full board, that people can indeed start submitting their appeals. So a deferment would not be dilatory to a good decision. And I would really like to hear from the state's attorney's office concerning the residency issue, because when I read the statute, I see nothing in the statute that indicates the person on the Board of Review has to reside in the county.
Mr. Chairman, it is my understanding that the incumbent remains in the position until such time as he is replaced.
That is correct.
Okay. Ms. Holderfield.
My problem with having someone that is outside of our county is the fact that they are, oh, excuse me, this isn't about the deferral, is it?
It isn't.
Pardon me.
Speaking on the deferral, Ms. Berkson.
Since once we appoint this person, we have absolutely no control over him for the next 2 years. I'd rather get it right and not put someone in who has a conflict of interest.
Okay. Mr. Kibler, on the question of deferral.
Correct. If we deferred, would we have the ability to bring in more candidates, or are we stuck basically with this for a while?
Depends on when you defer it to. I was deferred to the next full board meeting. When did you make your deferral to?
To the next appropriate cow.
Next appropriate cow. Okay. Mr. Chairman, can you answer that question?
We would have to, a deferral would not open it up for additional candidates.
Does the chair have the authority to do so?
I think that's a legal question there.
Okay. Speaking on the motion to defer, Mr. Mosher.
This mean if we defer that Mr. Vance is going to continue to serve?
Correct. That's correct. Mr. McGinty, assuming he wants to.
This is why deferral to me makes sense. We don't know. The incumbent continues. As far as I can tell, Mr. Vance is the most experienced one in that office in the first place, and so being able to field business until then, until we can get some answers, because I agree with Ms. Berkson. I mean, let's do this right. We've talked about this for a while. The only other thing I'll add, especially about deferral, it's painful to defer, but we need to be prepared for this when we come to these meetings. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak on the question of deferral? Mr. Jay.
Well, I'm disappointed that we are going to defer this. I think that we've had more than ample time. It seems like that we can't make any decisions anymore without dragging them all out time and time again. I do not believe that Mr. Whitsitt would serve if, in fact, he thought he had a conflict of interest. And, in fact, I know he had been questioned about that and had indicated to me he didn't feel that he was in a conflict of interest, but he's not an attorney. But I think that at some point we're going to have people not want these jobs because we make it too darn difficult to get them to begin with.
Speaking on the motion to defer, anyone else on the motion to defer? All those in favor of the motion to defer signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
The motion fails. We're back to the main motion. Now we're speaking on the merits of the candidate. Questions? Mr. Jay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, you gave me an opportunity and I didn't take advantage of it because I didn't think that we'd have this issue. Mr. Whitsitt, I do believe, is an honorable person. He's been in the community and done this work for a long time. I do think, and I do know for a fact, that the conflict of interest issue had come up to him, and he didn't feel that that would be an issue, and that if it did become an issue, that he would recuse himself. So I don't think there's any need to postpone this, and if it doesn't work out, we can always appoint a replacement for him.
Mr. James, then Diane.
I was just going to say I'd have to concur with Jay because many times in this body there's issues that come up that some of us have to, abstain from voting or what have you. So,
Diane.
I'm going to need to abstain from this. Mr. Whitsitt has done some work for some of my clients that I'm working with right now.
Mr. Carter.
I'm wondering, do honorable mean anything in this convening? The way we do business. And I'm just completely lost of what's happening. You know, I never see a person get hung or tried unless he's told what he done. And this is not happening. This is plumb ridiculous. This is what I went to fight for. I'm telling you, I made a mistake.
Ms. Holderfield.
Now it's appropriate. As far as the two candidates that are currently up for the nomination appointment, I feel that having someone that is outside of our area, they are practicing outside of their scope, and it's inappropriate. I do believe that Mr. Whitsitt is an honorable person and that he would do a very good job. However, I am truly disappointed with the opinion from the state's attorney, and I do agree with Mr. McGinty that it is vague. However, if there is no real litigation, so to speak, that would cause a problem for Champaign County in the future, then I would support Mr. Whitsitt.
Ms. Petrie and then Mr. Mitchell.
I did interview all the candidates that include Mr. Whitsitt. I did question him about the conflict of interest. I see this conflict of interest much more complex than, say, one of the present members of the Board of Review who does appraisals on the side, and it's easy to recuse or say on that appraisal not to be used to challenge the assessor's value on the property. This is a gentleman, a fine gentleman. That's not the issue. The issue is that this is a gentleman who works for his father, whose business is primarily commercial assessments. There's only two in the community, and this business does a large amount of those assessments. So to separate those when they come to the Board of Review makes it extremely difficult, and the opinion of the state's attorney's office is very gray, but whether it was gray or not, the appearance of conflict of interest is terribly apparent, and why we as a county board want to put ourselves into this potential situation when we're trying to clear up the board of review confuses me a bit. It has nothing to do with the individual. It has to do with the business he's in, his father, and the appearance of conflict of interest.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to step aside for a moment because I want to say something.
Mr. Betts, you have the floor. We'll get you next.
It is not usual for me to agree wholeheartedly with Patsy Petrie on 2 items in one meeting. However,
on the record?
It is on the record. However, she has raised an absolutely valid point. There is the most blatant conflict of interest here, and it is a consistent conflict of interest. This firm does, whenever the city of Champaign wants to raise issues in terms of assessment, they tend to hire this or the other firm. When you serve on a board and you're going to, in this situation, have many, we're not talking about one recusal a year, you're talking about a lot of recusals, consistent recusals. And you're asking the other 2 board members who you have to work with on a regular basis that they might overrule the opinion, the appraisal of the firm you work for. That is a very awkward position. We have had a long history of problems at the Board of Review and to some degree at the Supervisor of Assessments Office. We should not, absolutely should not go into this knowing full well we have this potential problem. Mr. Whitsitt may be the finest human being that ever walked the earth. I hope he is. But I don't think that people consistently on boards are able to put those relationships aside and have their fellow board members that they're working with put them aside when it's on a regular basis. The state's attorney's opinion, gray is a nice word for it. It's a very polite word. An attorney general opinion from 1977. And it's, of course, in Illinois where corruption is winked at historically. And would there be litigation on this issue? Probably not, because we have a long history in this state of tolerating more conflicts of interest, more, dare I say, almost bribery. A state that has at least 5 governors that have been indicted before, various members of the state legislature, et cetera, et cetera. We tolerate an awful lot in this state. We tolerate conflicts of interest that would be absolutely categorically barred in most jurisdictions. This, in my view, this one should be barred as well. I think anyone who's going to regularly have their firm appear or make appraisals on matters should not be appointed to a board of review. I don't care whether they're Democrat or Republican, independent. It should not take place. We have gone through some stormy times, and I think we're begging for more storms. This is, I wish we could have deferred it, but since we can't, I can't support the chair's nominee, and that bothers me because I always support the chair's nominees, because I know he does vet people, talk to them, he takes the time. But in this one, I with all due respect, Pius, I cannot support your nomination.
Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The dates are mandated July 1st through September 10th, so we do need to bear in mind that whomever we choose needs to be up and ready to visit with taxpayers that are coming in to dispute their assessed valuation. I want to give some kudos from last year. Laura Stanifer came to our office and she made a wonderful presentation. I wasn't on the county board at that time, but I think she takes her job very seriously, and the members of the Board of Review also took it seriously, and they had an outline that we could take to people who are looking to sell their home, or information that we could pass on to the public. So I really appreciate the time she took last year. I do feel that there is a conflict of interest. I am friends with Mr. Whitsitt, but at the same time, I have a little bit knot in my stomach, simply because if commercial appraisals is what they specialize in, that any customer that they would have, typically on a commercial appraisal, it's going to cost $1,000 approximately to do the appraisal. And if he has to recuse himself, that diminishes the Board of Review. So I also had a correspondence from someone in my district that supported Steve Bantz, and I just wanted to pass on that I've had interactions as a customer going into the Board of Review. I felt that I was properly heard. Everything doesn't always go your way. I was rejected at one visit, and I was supported in a second visit. But I want to know I want you to know that they do look at it seriously, and it doesn't always come out the way that you think when you go in.
Mr. Kibler.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. So to walk this through, tonight we have to vote because we've killed off the motion to defer. And let's assume that we vote no for Mr. Whitsitt. At this point in time, we're left, and we can't vote for the lady from Kankakee County. That really leaves us with one position if we're not allowed to choose anybody else based upon a legal review that has to go through. So theoretically, if we vote no for Mr. Whitsitt tonight and everything happens the way that it might, we may be looking at another 2-year term for our incumbent in the position. Is that true?
I would probably ask the board to consider another motion to defer for another month.
I move the motion to defer.
Okay.
Okay, we have another motion to defer by Mr. Betts, second by Ms. Petrie. Discussion of the motion to defer. Mr. Kibler.
What's the date on the motion to defer? Till when?
Board meeting.
It's the next board meeting.
Pardon?
July 19th.
And is it, guys,
go ahead, Mr. Kibler.
Is it the hope that by that time we'll have clarity from the state's attorney's office, or is the hope, what is the goal?
Well, certainly we can get clarity on the issue of Ms. Langland's eligibility. I'm not sure if Mr. Thorne perhaps could expand on his opinion, possibility he could do some more research. Obviously, I'll ask him to do that. Let's go, Mr. Betts.
I think also what could be done during that interim is you could make a determination in terms of recusal by looking at a little bit of past history in Champaign County in terms of complaints, how often and how frequently this particular firm has appraisals that are before the board. I think that would tell you a great deal about the nature and quality and extent of the potential conflict.
Okay.
You could also, if you were still going to appoint Mr. Whitsitt, you could get a conflict statement from him that in the following circumstances you're going to recuse yourself. And it seems to me it is not a question of whether he personally does the appraisal. That is an obvious conflict. But that firm itself cannot do the appraisal. And I have not heard him say that he's going to disqualify himself whenever that firm or its agents do the appraisal, which when Mr. Mitchell raised the issue about the money, I think that really sold it for me that this is not something that people are likely to voluntarily give up. But I think those questions could be addressed in the next few weeks fairly easily.
Mr. Mosier, you still have a comment?
My only comment is if they're a certified appraiser, they're going to be breaking the law if they do something that is illegal with the state. You could lose your license. And there's always going to be conflict between the real estate people and the appraisal people because they're a pretty close-knit operation that do these kind of appraisals, and it's hard to get somebody to sit on that board that isn't in conflict with somebody when you work for a bank or you work for an individual, there's always going to be an occasion where somebody could accuse you of malfeasance or worse in office. And I would much rather have somebody in there that has the experience to walk in the door and do the job than go out and hire somebody that doesn't live in this county and couldn't find half the towns outside Champaign or Banner. I think it's preposterous to ask Mr. Bance to come back and work another month when you're going to put somebody else in there, because I don't think Mr. Bance is going to do it. And as Mr. Mitchell said, July 1 comes and all three of those people have to be there and have their feet on the ground to deal with complaints, and they're going to get a lot of them. I think he should be voted on tonight, and if you want to try to stipulate something at a later date, he's probably going to agree to it, because they're not going to be in a position to be in conflict with the state when you have a certified appraiser's license that's very difficult to come by right now.
Mr. McGinty.
So this is a really good point, because Steve Mosier just said it. How do we get out of it if we appoint him? Can somebody tell me that? I mean, here's the thing. If there really is a conflict and he can't, serve because he can't judge on some reasonably large percentage of whatever he's going to be looking at, how do we get out of it? I don't know him, and I trust the fact that he's a good person based on the fact that a bunch of my county board friends are saying that he is, and that's fine. But the fact remains that I'm really disappointed that we can't get a definite answer on what our options are here. That's the problem I have, is that we and this is about deferral. Makes sense to defer except for that time crunch that Max and Steve are talking about. So if that's a real problem, if that is absolutely a real problem, where having 2 out of the 3 isn't good enough, that we need all 3 hands on deck on July 1st, and we have to vote, then my question is, how do we kick him out if it's not working out? If we can't, then I think that we're at risk. And not having answers from the state's attorney's office, or having prepared in enough advance to get those answers, anticipating this, I think is a real problem. So I'm a little confused as to what to do here. I'm happy to vote just randomly, but that doesn't feel very good. Yeah, he's a great guy. Let's just vote for him because he's a great guy. Well, I'm wondering about this. Why did we ask for state's attorney's opinions if we're going to ignore them completely? Or if we're confused by them, if we're not going to challenge them and get an answer? Can we not have a special meeting to do this? Can we not come up with some more creative solutions to go and get a damn answer that's real, that we can trust, and then have a special meeting and vote on it? How long will that take? Not long. So if we need to do that before July 1st, I suggest we do that before July 1st. I'm still going to support deferring, because I think we have other options at our disposal that can give us the answers that we need to be comfortable with this appointment. God, we've beaten this around for so long. Let's do this right.
Mr. Mitchell.
I still speak to defer, and the rationale behind it is that there were 2,100 complaints last year, and this is a state statute, isn't it, that July 1 through the 10th of September. So we need 100% participation in that office. We can't be understaffed. They have to make decisions. It's a process. They go they go through. They look at the information that's brought in.
No, sure. 26.
And after they review that, they then do an evaluation after the fact and then send a report. So you can't ask somebody to come in and start the process and not complete it.
Mr. Kurtz.
Thank you. I'm going to vote no on the deferral, and I would like a roll call on that, Mr. Chair. I'm going to support the chair's nomination. He talked with all of the potential candidates, and chose this gentleman. I do see that in the past, there have been other conflicts of interest. I don't know how serious they were, but it was worked out between the 3 Board of Review members by one of them recusing themselves or immediately sent to the PTAB board. I've been listening closely to both sides of the aisle, and I feel deferral at this time will cause a great deal of problems at the assessment office. If this has to carry on past July 1st, we will do an injustice, disservice to our taxpayers if we don't have a full board sitting. And I think Mr. Whitson has the prerequisites to do the job, and it's just difficult for me to think that there will be that many recusions because this is a commercial. Most of our most of the appraisals can be handled by if there is a conflict of interest, can be handled by the other 2 board members. So I'm going to vote no, and I'm asking for a roll call on the deferral.
Ms. Petrie.
Mr. Chair, what is the possibility that some of these answers could be obtained by next Tuesday when we are sitting for the RFPs, and we could sit maybe a half an hour before that is to start and just focus on this issue alone and put closure on it, and that's before the 1st of July.
Well, certainly it'd have 3 full days, Fridays, Monday and Tuesday. I would assume that more time.
So if Mr. Betts would accept a friendly amendment to his motion for deferral to put the deferral time for the 26th of June.
And also have a special meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Actually, you don't have to have a motion to have them. We have to have signatures to get one, though. They have to be at a special meeting.
Thank you for the instruction.
Mr. Betts? Well, he's asking for a friendly amendment.
And she wants there to be a meeting.
Next Tuesday. We'd have to probably start at 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Tuesday. We already have one. Right. So it won't cost the county more extra.
Correct.
I guess I consider it friendly if there's such a thing.
Well, is there any objection? Okay, seeing no objection.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. No objection to what? There's a motion to, the motion to defer has been amended to include a special meeting on next Tuesday. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's
at 5
correct.
o'clock?
Instead of moving next month, we have it next Tuesday at 5 o'clock.
And a special meeting will be noticed, assuming how many board members sign?
9.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion is now to defer it till next Tuesday. Mr. Schrader.
I will support the deferral if we get the 2 questions answered.
We will try.
Okay.
Mr. J.
We're about to narrow our scope down to where if you're an appraiser, you're not going to be eligible for this job, and I don't think we want to do that.
I will point out that the new appointees will not start until July 1, so that is a couple days before that. Mr. Mosier.
I just warn you that if you horse around with this too long, you're going to knock the tax cycle into a tailspin, and they've got to get their work done by the end of December. And if it isn't done, then the tax cycle's out.
No. We talked about this, not true. Mr. McGinty.
I'll just say, horse around versus get a real legal opinion. And still do this before the 1st seems to be a reasonable way of tackling this. If you don't think so, vote down the deferral. Let's get this going.
Further discussion deferral. Mr. Mitchell.
Still, I think that whomever is there, they meet the public, and they have to. I think that if they're not assigned to come in until the 1st of July is really, you can't learn your job in one day that you're coming in to meet the public. So I would also oppose the deferral.
Any further discussion? Okay, Mr. Kurtz asked for roll calls. Anybody else? Okay. So roll call on the deferral to next Tuesday.
Rosales.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Benzel.
Yes.
Bergson.
Yes.
Betts.
Yes.
Carter.
Indefinitely, yes.
Coert.
Yes.
Esri.
No.
Holderfield.
Yes.
James.
No.
Jay.
No.
Kibler.
No.
Kurtz.
No.
Maxwell.
No.
McGinty.
Yes.
Michaels. Mitchell.
No.
Mosier.
No.
O'Connor.
No.
Petrie.
Yes.
Weibel.
Yes, motion carries.
Which way?
Carried, that means it's deferred. Okay,
Question, so I assume that still requires signatures. By what point does that happen?
actually, Ms. Busey just walked out of the room to get a copy of that sheet so we can get the 9 signatures right away. Because otherwise, we gotta scurry around and find board members, so we'll do that tonight. Oh, well, we can do it after the adjourn, but hang around. Okay, is there any other business? Any, Mr. O'Connor? Mr. O'Connor?
Just a question, Mr. Chairman. What does everybody think is going to change between now and next Tuesday?
Hopefully we'll have some opinions. Ms. Bergson.
When I was looking at all these proposals for the jail needs, I was horrified by the conflict of interest. Most of them seem to think that they would do the whole process from the needs assessment through the construction. And since the needs assessment is supposed to be finding a cheap way and the construction is, they'll be hoping to get as much construction as possible. I think that we should decide in advance that we'll have the needs assessment done by one firm, and whatever construction or programs are done will be done by another firm. So the needs assessment people have one job, which is to save us money and find ways to handle it. I'd like to make a motion to that effect.
That motion's out of order, it's not on the agenda.
Okay.
But certainly it can be discussed, best discussed actually when we actually make the vote, which is in July, at the county board meeting.
But the thing is,
I mean, clearly you planted the idea already, so.
but at the interviews, which are in 5 days, I think if we are thinking in terms of separating the two, we might ask different questions and have different choices for whom to select than if we're thinking of it as all being done as one.
Mr. Alex.
To that, I would just add that I definitely think it's appropriate that the county administrator or we as a board make clear to the interviewees that we are at this point only selecting a firm to perform a needs assessment.
Yeah, that's what the RFP was for. We could reemphasize that. Okay, any other discussion? Ms. Petrie.
Well, since Bergson brought up a concern, I do want to share with my fellow board members my concern about the DLZ submission, which got the second highest points, and my concern has to do with the fact that that firm did not follow the RFP protocol, in that on the last page was a financial statement as to what their submission would cost, with a paragraph that stated they do the job for $40,000, and if they got the job, then they'd put the differential of over $60,000 onto the final job. And to me, that made a very uneven playing field for the other 7 submissions that did follow the protocol of sealed submission of the cost of their proposal. And it troubles me that that score was the second highest score, and I am somewhat concerned that that financial information might possibly have skewed the evaluation.
Mr. Mosier.
This thing is just, like Lloyd says, it's ridiculous because one of these people, or all three of them, are going to know who walks in that door with a complaint. And when you look at it, well, I know that guy, is that going to be a conflict of interest? I don't know how the state's attorney's ever going to decipher this because it's a limited number of people that are going to be in there, and it's going to be a limited number of people that are going to be making decisions, and chances are you're going to know one of them. Because it has been traditional that the people that come in there with complaints do it every year. And in a lot of cases, value judgments on what a piece of property is worth is not done by an appraiser. They look at what comparable sales are, and if somebody doesn't have an appraisal, they still have a way out if they can show that something is sold in their neighborhood that's comparable without hiring somebody to appraise it. Mr. Mitchell makes a great point, but not very many people are going to pay $1,000 to somebody to do a formal appraisal on something that might get their property tax reduced $200 or $300, and that's just about what it amounts to.
Okay, we can certainly discuss this discussion the next Tuesday when you have it on the agenda. And Mr. Carter, you have other business?
Yeah. I just want you to know how I feel. And right now, I'm feeling awful. And I almost want to say it's racism. And I'm leaning in between the two because you got your job done last year. And I'm going to tell you, I'm the kind of person, if my son wasn't performing, I would let him know that. I'm not that kind of person that would hold up for somebody that wasn't doing his duty. And I asked everybody I could that was associated with both of these individuals, and nobody could say nothing wrong about it. And they got the work done. So now you're sitting up here worried about getting your work done, and you was getting it done, but you didn't appreciate it. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know this gentleman or whoever it is that's coming in, but he better look good when he want to join company with this bunch. Because your personality is flaky. You might come in one morning and you say, well, you didn't speak to me right, he out the door too. It's ridiculous what's going on here. I've never in my life, well, in the old days, they used to kind of do that. You go down the road, you get a ticket, the guy that stopped you wrote you the ticket, you go in, he be the judge and the hanging guy too. But I thought we got rid of that. How in the world, this man wrote you a kind letter here and you didn't even consider it. You didn't even consider it. Not one word that you said that would give this young man a chance. And if he'd have did something wrong, I told you long ago, no, he gotta go. But you don't, I thought in this country you don't hang people without telling them why you're hanging them. And I just feel bad about being in this company, I'm gonna tell you. Thank you.
Any other information? Any other?
Just quick note, everybody come to Gifford Parade and West Side Park.
Seeing that Mr. Kibler can adjourn, you have, hopefully.
Go for it.
Let's adjourn.
There you go.